If you are lying in bed now, your body beginning to relax and your eyes slowly becoming heavy, let this story drift over you like a soft blanket. Tonight, we begin the journey of Virgil van Dijk, one of football's greatest defenders, a man whose calm presence and towering strength on the pitch have inspired awe across the world. But before the trophies, before the glory of Anfield and the Champions League, before he was captain of his country, there was a boy in the Dutch city of Breda. His story is not one of instant success, but of struggle, setbacks, resilience, and an unshakable determination to rise above the doubts. As you listen, let his story carry you gently into sleep. Virgil van Dijk was born on July 8, 1991 in Breda, a modest city in the south of the Netherlands. Breda was a city known for its football culture, but also for its working-class spirit. For young Virgil, football was more than just a game. It was an escape, a joy, a dream. His father was of Dutch descent, his mother from Suriname, a South American country that had produced many fine Dutch players over the years. Football flowed naturally in his veins, but it would not come easily. As a child, Virgil was not the towering figure we know today. In fact, he was quite the opposite. Small, quiet, not especially quick. He loved the game, but many around him doubted he would ever become a professional. Coaches looked at him and saw an ordinary boy, not a future star. He began as a right back, running up and down the line, trying to find his place. He was hardworking, yes, but not exceptional. At home, life was not always easy. His parents separated when he was still young, and the absence of his father was a wound that stayed with him. Raised largely by his mother, he grew up with responsibility early, helping her, learning resilience. That sense of responsibility, of carrying weight on his shoulders, would one day define him as a leader on the pitch. During his teenage years, Virgil faced one of his greatest challenges, not on the pitch but with his health. At just 17, while still developing as a player, he suffered a severe infection in his abdomen. The illness spread quickly, leaving him in the hospital, weak and frail. Doctors treated him seriously, and for a time there was fear for his life. He underwent surgery, spending weeks in recovery, uncertain if he would ever return to football. At one point, he even wrote a letter, thinking he might not survive. For a young boy with dreams of playing professionally, it was a nightmare, but Virgil recovered. Slowly, painfully, he regained his strength, and something remarkable happened during those years. His body changed. He grew taller, stronger, broader. The boy who had once seemed small and ordinary transformed into a young man with a commanding frame. By the time he reached his late teens, he stood over 6 feet tall, his body powerful, his presence noticeable. Coaches who had once dismissed him began to take a second look. Yet even with his new physique, opportunities did not come easily. He trained with the Academy of Willem II, a club known for developing young players, but they doubted his potential. They believed he was too slow, too clumsy, not technically refined enough to succeed. Willem II eventually let him go. For many, that would have been the end. To be rejected at such a formative stage can crush a dream. But for Virgil, rejection was not the end. It was fuel. He moved to FC Groningen, another Dutch club where he was given a chance to develop. Even there, it was not immediate glory. He played for the reserves, working tirelessly, improving slowly. But step by step, his qualities began to shine. He was strong in the air, calm under pressure, comfortable with the ball at his feet. Groningen's coaches noticed his intelligence, his reading of the game. He was not flashy, but he was reliable. And reliability is the seed of greatness in a defender. Those early years in Groningen were formative not just for his football, but for his character. Virgil was never the type to boast, never the type to demand attention. He had known too much struggle, too much rejection. Instead, he worked quietly, letting his performances speak. He grew into himself, both physically and mentally. The infection that nearly ended his life became a turning point. It had shown him fragility, and from fragility he built strength. At this time, his family and friends often described him as serious, focused, mature beyond his years. He did not spend his nights chasing distractions. He trained, he recovered, he dreamed. His mother, who had sacrificed so much for him, was always in his thoughts. He wanted to succeed not just for himself, but for her, for the sacrifices she had made, for the belief she had held when so many doubted. As he played his first professional matches with Groningen's senior team, Virgil's presence on the pitch was undeniable. He was tall, composed, and strong. He read the game with calmness unusual for his age. Opponents found it difficult to get past him, not because he was the fastest, but because he was always in the right place at the right time. And when the ball came to his feet, he played with elegance, not panic. He passed calmly, building from the back, a style that would later define his greatness. The path had been anything but simple. A boy underestimated, rejected by academies, nearly killed by illness, raised by a single mother. Yet in those struggles, Virgil van Dijk had forged the resilience that would carry him to the very top. His story reminds us that greatness is not always obvious in childhood. Sometimes it grows slowly, quietly, until one day it can no longer be ignored. As you rest now, imagine him as a boy in Breda, playing on the streets, dreaming of a stadium. Picture him in the hospital, weak but unbroken. Picture him growing taller, stronger, returning to training, determined to prove everyone wrong. Picture him at Groningen, standing tall in green and white, taking his first steps into professional football. This was the beginning of Virgil van Dijk, not the superstar of today, but the boy who turned rejection into resilience, illness into strength, and doubt into determination. After his struggles as a teenager, his rejection at Willem II, and his recovery from illness, Virgil van Dijk found himself at FC Groningen, a modest club in the Dutch Eredivisie. It was not the biggest stage, not the most glamorous of places, but for Virgil, it was an opportunity, and an opportunity was all he needed. Groningen, known for giving young players a chance, became the ground where he would plant his roots, where he would slowly, carefully, grow into the footballer the world would one day celebrate. At first, life at Groningen was not easy. Virgil was tall, yes, and strong, but he was raw. His positioning needed refining. His timing in tackles was sometimes clumsy, and his passing, though promising, lacked consistency. The coaches recognized his potential, but they also knew he had a long road ahead. For months he played with the reserves, training every day, waiting patiently for his chance. Many players in his position might have grown frustrated, might have looked elsewhere. But Virgil did not complain. He worked, he listened, he learned. Those early training sessions at Groningen were intense. Dutch football has always prized technique, intelligence, and tactical awareness. For defenders, it was not enough to simply kick the ball away. They had to know how to build play, how to anticipate, how to think one step ahead. Virgil threw himself into this education. He studied opponents, studied positioning, studied his own mistakes, and slowly his performances improved. What set Virgil apart even then was his calmness. Many young defenders panic under pressure, rushing their clearances or fouling recklessly. Virgil, even as a beginner, showed composure. He did not dive into tackles. He waited, watched, and timed his challenges. When he had the ball, he did not just boot it aimlessly upfield. He looked for passes, tried to build from the back. That composure would become his trademark, the quality that would one day make him the most expensive defender in the world. His breakthrough came in 2011, when he made his senior debut for Groningen in the Eredivisie. At first it was just a few minutes, then a few matches, then more regular appearances. Each time he played, he grew in confidence. His aerial dominance was obvious. Few strikers could compete with his height and timing. Slowly, fans began to notice the tall young defender with the calm face and commanding presence. But it was not only in defending that Virgil impressed. He had a surprising ability to score goals. With his height and heading ability, he became a threat on set pieces. Corners and free kicks became opportunities, and Virgil learned to time his runs, to use his strength to rise above defenders, to direct the ball with power and precision. For Groningen, this was an unexpected gift. A defender who could not only protect their goal, but also contribute to scoring at the other end. One of his most memorable early goals came in a match against ADO Den Haag. Groningen won a free kick outside the box, and to everyone's surprise, Virgil stepped up to take it. With a clean strike of his right foot, he bent the ball around the wall and into the net. The crowd erupted. His teammates rushed to him, And suddenly the young defender was more than just a stopper. He was a player of versatility, of flair. Groningen fans began to whisper that they had something special on their hands. Of course, the journey was not without setbacks. There were mistakes, misjudged headers, missed tackles, moments where his inexperience showed. Critics questioned whether he was fast enough, whether he was focused enough. But each mistake became a lesson. Virgil had known rejection before. He had known illness. A bad game did not break him. If anything, it strengthened him. After every slip, he worked harder in training, determined not to repeat it. His mentality was his greatest strength. Never too high after praise, never too low after criticism. By 2012, Virgil had established himself as a regular starter for Groningen. Week after week, he faced some of the best attackers in Dutch football. He marked quick wingers, strong forwards, clever playmakers. Each challenge refined him. Fans began to notice his elegance on the ball. Unlike many defenders who simply cleared danger, Virgil often carried the ball out of defense, striding forward confidently, head up, scanning the field for options. His long passing improved, his short passing sharpened. He was becoming the kind of defender modern football craved, one who could defend and build in equal measure. Off the pitch, Virgil remained quiet, focused, humble. He did not live for the spotlight. His life revolved around training, matches, and recovery. Friends described him as serious but not joyless. He had a quiet sense of humor, a warmth to those close to him. But he carried himself with maturity, a young man already aware of the responsibility of being a professional. For Groningen, his rise was both a blessing and a challenge. They were proud of their young star, but they knew bigger clubs would soon come calling. Scouts from across Europe began to appear in the stands, notebooks in hand, eyes fixed on the tall, calm defender in green and white. Reports were written, strong in the air, calm on the ball, good reading of the game, potential to grow into a top-level defender. And yet, despite the growing attention, Virgil stayed grounded. He did not rush, did not demand transfers, did not let his head swell with praise. He knew his journey was still at the beginning. His goal was simple: improve step by step every day. One of his biggest tests came in European competition. Groningen qualified for the Europa League qualifiers, giving Virgil his first taste of continental football. Against seasoned opponents from other countries, he held his own, showing composure beyond his years. For him, it was confirmation. He could compete not only in the Eredivisie, but on larger stages. It planted the seed of belief that he belonged in Europe's elite. By the summer of 2013, the interest became impossible to ignore. Clubs from bigger leagues wanted him. There was talk of Germany, of England, but the strongest call came from Scotland. Celtic Glasgow, the giants of Scottish football, made their move. For Virgil, it was both exciting and daunting. Leaving the Netherlands, moving to a new country, adapting to a new style. It would be a huge step. But he was ready. Groningen had been his foundation, the place where he had grown from a rejected teenager into a professional defender. Now he was prepared for the next chapter. As you rest tonight, imagine him in those Groningen days. Picture the modest stadium, the green seats, the loyal fans cheering in the Dutch rain. Picture the tall young defender, calm and composed, rising above the crowd to head the ball away, or striding forward with elegance. Picture him scoring from a free kick, his teammates celebrating, the crowd roaring with joy. Picture a player at the beginning of greatness, humble, determined, preparing quietly for the journey that lay ahead. The story of Virgil van Dijk was only just beginning. Groningen had given him the platform, the confidence, the belief, but the world was waiting, and soon Celtic Park would become his next home. When the summer of 2013 arrived, Virgil van Dijk stood at a crossroads. He had grown at Groningen, matured into a composed and reliable defender, and caught the eyes of scouts across Europe. And then came the call from Scotland, from one of the most historic clubs in world football, Celtic Glasgow. For Virgil, it was a chance to take a leap forward, to test himself in a new country, a new culture, in front of one of the most passionate fan bases in the game. Celtic is not just a club, it is an institution. Its history stretches back to the 19th century, filled with legends, trophies, and unforgettable nights at Celtic Park, known to fans simply as paradise. For many young players, the opportunity to wear the famous green and white hoops is a dream. For Virgil, it was both exciting and daunting. He was leaving the Netherlands for the first time, moving to a city with a language, culture, and footballing style different from what he knew. But he embraced it. After all, every step of his life had been about growth through challenge. When he arrived in Glasgow, fans did not quite know what to expect. He was tall, yes, and imposing, but he was still relatively unknown outside of the Netherlands. He was not a star signing, not yet a household name. But Celtic's coaches had seen in him what Groningen had nurtured: composure, strength, and potential. They believed he could become a cornerstone of their defense. From his very first matches in the Scottish Premiership, it became clear that Celtic had found a gem. Virgil's physical dominance stood out immediately. Scottish football is tough, physical, demanding. Strikers there are aggressive. Aerial battles are constant, and defenders are expected to be warriors. Virgil fit right in. His height, strength, and timing made him almost unbeatable in the air. Opponents who tried to bully him quickly learned it was useless. He was calm, powerful, and always in control. But what really made him special was not just his strength, it was his elegance. Fans were used to defenders who cleared their lines, who played it safe. Virgil, however, brought something different. When he had the ball, he did not panic. He looked up, passed with precision, sometimes even carried the ball forward into midfield. There were moments when he would glide past opponents with ease, his stride long and smooth, his control assured. Celtic supporters, who had seen many great defenders in their history, began to realize they were watching someone unique. In his first season, he quickly became a regular starter. He helped Celtic dominate the league, keeping clean sheets, leading the back line with maturity beyond his years. His partnership with other defenders grew strong, and his communication on the pitch was clear and confident. Despite being new to the team, he did not hesitate to take responsibility. European nights at Celtic Park gave him his first real taste of football at the highest level. The Champions League anthem echoed, the stands filled with nearly 60,000 fans, the atmosphere electric. For Virgil, these matches were more than just games. They were experiences that shaped him. Facing some of Europe's best strikers, he tested himself, learned, adapted. While Celtic did not always triumph, Virgil's performances stood out. Analysts praised his composure under pressure, his ability to read the game, his calm presence even when surrounded by chaos. He was also developing a reputation for scoring goals. Just as he had at Groningen, his aerial power made him a constant threat from set pieces. Fans loved seeing him rise above defenders, meeting corners with powerful headers. He also displayed his talent for free kicks, something unusual for a central defender. On more than one occasion, he stepped up and bent the ball into the net with precision, surprising opponents and delighting supporters. It was another reminder that he was no ordinary defender. Off the pitch, life in Glasgow was an adjustment, but Virgil adapted well. He enjoyed the warmth of the Celtic fans, the passion of the city, the traditions of the club. Though quiet and reserved by nature, he began to show leadership qualities, guiding younger teammates, setting an example with his professionalism. His work ethic and training impressed coaches. He was not one to show off or demand attention, but he carried himself with confidence. As his first season ended, he had already become one of the best defenders in the league. Celtic has always won the Scottish Premiership, and Virgil played a key role. Fans began to chant his name, recognizing his contributions, admiring his calm strength. He was not only defending Celtic's goal, he was building the foundations of their play, starting attacks, linking defense to midfield. His second season only reinforced his reputation. He became a true leader in the back line, a player Celtic could not do without. His consistency was remarkable. Week after week he delivered top performances, rarely making mistakes, always calm under pressure. Journalists in Scotland began to speak of him as one of the best players in the league, not just one of the best defenders. Rival managers admitted he was almost impossible to get past. Strikers, frustrated by his dominance, sometimes described him as a wall. European competition continued to test him, and he continued to impress. Matches against top European sides showed that he was not out of place on the biggest stage. While Celtic sometimes struggled against wealthier clubs, Virgil's performances were bright spots. Scouts from across Europe took notice. Reports described him as a defender with the physical power for the Premier League, the intelligence for Serie A, the technical quality for La Liga. His name began to circulate in transfer rumors, linked with bigger clubs. But through it all, Virgil remained grounded. He did not let the speculation distract him. He focused on Celtic, on his performances, on improvement. He had learned long ago, through rejection and illness, that progress is step by step, day by day. And so he trained, he played, he led. By 2015, it was clear he was ready for the next step. Celtic fans, though sad at the thought of losing him, also knew he deserved it. He had given them 2 brilliant seasons, trophies, memories, and a sense of security and defense that few players could provide. When Southampton, a Premier League club, came calling, the move felt right. It was not the biggest club in England, but it was a platform. For Virgil, it was another challenge, another chance to prove himself at a higher level. As you rest tonight, imagine him in those Celtic days. Picture him walking out at Celtic Park, the green and white scarf held high, the roar of 60,000 fans shaking the ground. Picture him commanding the defense, calm and composed, his tall frame rising above the chaos to clear danger. Picture him scoring from a corner, celebrating with teammates, smiling quietly. Picture him as he was then, a defender who had grown from obscurity into dominance, who had taken another step toward greatness. Celtic had been his proving ground, his classroom, his stage. But the Premier League awaited, and there, Virgil van Dijk would face his greatest tests yet. When Virgil van Dijk left Celtic in the summer of 2015, he carried with him the confidence of 2 dominant seasons in Scotland. He had become a leader at Celtic Park, a defender who stood tall in Europe, and a player whose name had begun to echo beyond Glasgow. But there was a sense both in him and in those who watched him that his journey was only just beginning. The Premier League was calling, and with it came the chance to test himself against some of the best strikers in the world. Southampton were the ones who moved for him. At first glance, it might not have seemed like the most glamorous destination. Southampton were not a giant like Manchester United or Chelsea, nor a historic champion like Liverpool or Arsenal. But in those years, Southampton had built a reputation for something different, a breeding ground for talent, a club where players grew, proved themselves, and earned moves to even bigger stages. For Virgil, it was the perfect step, not too much too soon, but high enough to challenge him in ways Celtic never could. The transfer fee, around $13 million, was modest by Premier League standards, but it was a statement. Southampton believed in him, believed that the defender who had commanded in Scotland could adapt to the faster, more ruthless world of English football. Still, there were doubts. Some critics dismissed his dominance in Scotland, saying the league was too weak, the competition too small. "Let's see if he can do it in the Premier League," they said. Virgil heard it, but he did not let it shake him. He had been doubted before. He had been rejected before. He knew how to prove people wrong. When he first stepped onto the pitch in a Southampton shirt, he immediately looked the part. The Premier League is relentless. Its pace, its intensity, its physicality. But Virgil seemed born for it. He was calm under pressure, unflustered by the speed of attackers, unshaken by the physical battles. His positioning was excellent, his timing precise. And when he had the ball, he showed something rare for a centre-back: elegance. He passed with composure, carried the ball forward with confidence, and often looked more like a midfielder than a defender. Southampton fans quickly fell in love with him. They had seen good defenders before, but few who combined power and grace in the way Virgil did. He was not only solid at the back, he was a leader, commanding the defense, organizing teammates, shouting instructions with authority. Though he was new to the club, his presence was undeniable. Within weeks, he had become the anchor of Southampton's back line. One of the first things observers noticed was his aerial dominance. No striker could outjump him. No corner seemed dangerous when he was there. He not only cleared balls, but also scored goals. Just as at Groningen and Celtic, his ability to attack set pieces made him a weapon. Southampton soon realized they had found not just a defender, but a player who could change games at both ends of the pitch. But the Premier League tested him in new ways. Week after week he faced world-class strikers, Sergio Aguero, Harry Kane, Diego Costa. These were forwards who could exploit the slightest mistake. Yet Virgil held his ground. He read the game like a book, anticipating runs, cutting out passes, timing tackles with precision. Commentators began to praise not just his physicality, but his brain. "He makes defending look easy," one pundit said, and it was true. He never seemed rushed, never seemed panicked. Everything looked effortless. As the months passed, his reputation grew. Journalists who had doubted him in Scotland now wrote glowing reviews. Former players admired his calmness, his authority. Managers took notice. Bigger clubs began to circle, keeping a close eye on the Dutch defender who was making such waves on the south coast of England. Off the pitch, Virgil's personality shone through. He was respected by teammates not only for his ability, but for his character. He trained hard, set high standards, and carried himself with humility. He was not flashy, not arrogant. He drove simple cars, wore simple clothes, and lived quietly. He focused on his football, on improving day by day. That humility, combined with his dominance on the pitch, made him a natural leader. Even players older than him looked to him for guidance. By his second season at Southampton, Virgil was one of the best defenders in the league. He was named team captain, a remarkable achievement for someone who had joined only a year earlier. His leadership was obvious. He commanded with authority, inspired with performances, and lifted the team around him. Fans adored him. Children wore his name on their shirts, and his presence gave Southampton belief. But with success came interest. Liverpool, Chelsea, Manchester City, England's biggest clubs wanted him. They saw in Virgil the missing piece, the kind of defender who could transform a team. Rumors grew louder, transfer fees climbed higher. 2017, Liverpool made their move, agreeing a deal that would make him the most expensive defender in the world. But the transfer collapsed amid controversy, and for a time, Virgil's future was uncertain. Southampton refused to sell, and Virgil was left in limbo. It was a difficult period. For the first time in years, he faced frustration not from injury or doubt, but from politics. He handed in a transfer request, wanting to move, wanting to take the next step. Fans were divided. Some felt betrayed, others understood. But through it all, Virgil remained professional. He trained, he played, he led. His performances never dropped. He showed the kind of mentality that defined his career. Calm, focused, unshaken by the noise around him. Eventually, the move would come. In January 2018, Liverpool signed him for $75 million, shattering the record for a defender. The world gasped at the fee. Was any defender worth that much? Critics said no. They said Liverpool had overpaid, that Virgil would never live up to the price tag. But those who had watched him closely at Southampton knew the truth. They knew he was ready, that he was not just a good defender, but a great one, perhaps one of the best of his generation. As you drift toward sleep, imagine him in those Southampton years. Picture the red and white stripes, the modest stadium filled with loyal fans, the South Coast wind blowing as he strode calmly across the pitch. Picture him rising above attackers to clear the ball, shouting instructions to teammates, scoring from a corner, lifting the team with his presence. Picture the captain's armband on his arm, the responsibility on his shoulders, the calmness in his eyes. Southampton was never meant to be his final destination, but it was the bridge. It was where he proved himself in the toughest league in the world, where he silenced doubters, where he became more than a prospect. He became a world-class defender. And from there, the stage was set for Anfield, for greatness, for history. When Liverpool finally secured Virgil van Dijk's signature in January 2018, football history shifted. The fee, $75 million, was a shock, a record for a defender. Critics filled the headlines with doubt. Could anyone at the back truly be worth that much? But Liverpool knew, Jurgen Klopp knew, and Virgil himself knew. This was not just a transfer. This was a statement. Liverpool, once glorious but long searching for stability, had found their rock. From the moment he walked into Anfield, it was clear he belonged. Tall, calm, confident, Virgil did not need to shout about his worth. The way he carried himself said everything. He debuted in the FA Cup against Everton, a fiery Merseyside derby where pressure is at its highest. And in that very first game, he announced himself. With the score tied late, Liverpool won a corner. Virgil rose above everyone, soaring higher, stronger, and guided the ball into the net. The stadium exploded. Liverpool had found their leader. That goal was more than a winner, it was a symbol. The crowd, the players, even the critics watching could feel it. Liverpool had changed. From that moment, the defense, once shaky and vulnerable, began to transform. Virgil didn't just defend. He organized, commanded, and reassured. Where once there had been panic, now there was calm. Where once there was doubt, now there was belief. Teammates quickly felt the difference. Goalkeeper Alisson Becker, who joined months later, often said that playing behind Virgil was like having a shield. Fullbacks Andy Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold spoke about how his presence allowed them to fly forward, knowing he would cover them. Even midfielders felt his influence. He organized not only the back line, but the entire team. Liverpool's pressing, Klopp's famous gegenpressing, relied on confidence at the back, and with Virgil there, confidence flowed. The 2018 Champions League run showcased his impact. Liverpool had been thrilling in attack with Salah, Mané, and Firmino, but fragile at the back. With Virgil, the balance shifted. Against Manchester City in the quarter-finals, he marshaled the defense with authority, cutting out danger, blocking shots, leading with calmness. In the semi-finals against Roma, his composure steadied the storm. Liverpool reached the final, and though Real Madrid triumphed in Kyiv, fans knew something had changed. The foundation for greatness was laid. The following season, 2018-19, was when Virgil's legend truly soared. Liverpool and Manchester City pushed each other in one of the greatest Premier League title races of all time. City finished with 98 points, Liverpool with 97, just one short. Liverpool lost only one game all season, and their defense, anchored by Virgil, was the best in the league. He was named PFA Players' Player of the Year, the first defender to win it since John Terry. He was also voted UEFA Men's Player of the Year, beating even Messi and Ronaldo, a sign of just how dominant he had become. In the Champions League, his influence was even more profound. Liverpool faced Barcelona in the semi-finals, losing 3-0 in the first leg at the Camp Nou. The task seemed impossible. But in the second leg, on a night that will live forever in Anfield history, Liverpool produced one of the greatest comebacks the game has ever seen, winning 4-0. While the headlines went to Divock Origi and Trent's clever corner, it was Virgil's calm leadership at the back that ensured Barcelona never scored. The final in Madrid against Tottenham saw him dominate again, winning headers, intercepting attacks, controlling everything with serenity. Liverpool lifted their 6th European Cup, and Virgil was at the heart of it all. In 2019, he came second in the Ballon d'Or voting, only behind Lionel Messi. For a defender to come so close was extraordinary. Many argued he deserved to win, that his season had been one of the greatest ever by a center-back. But for Virgil, individual awards were never the goal. He smiled, accepted the recognition, and returned to training. His focus was always the team. The 2019-20 season brought the prize Liverpool fans had craved for 30 years, the Premier League title. With Virgil as their anchor, Liverpool stormed through the league, winning match after match, building an unstoppable momentum. He played every single minute of that league campaign, an iron wall who never missed a game, never seemed tired, never looked troubled. When Liverpool finally lifted the trophy, it was not just Klopp's pressing or Salah's goals that fans celebrated. It was also Virgil's calm dominance, the stability he had given them, the assurance that Liverpool were champions again. By this time, he was spoken of as the best defender in the world. Strikers dreaded facing him. In fact, a famous statistic circulated. For over a year in the Premier League, no player successfully dribbled past him. His aura was real. Attackers hesitated, sometimes turning away rather than trying to take him on. Fans joked that Virgil played football like he was in slow motion. Always calm, always one step ahead, never rushed. But it was not luck. It was anticipation, intelligence, timing, and confidence. Of course, even legends face setbacks. In October 2020, in a Merseyside derby against Everton, Virgil suffered a serious knee injury after a reckless challenge from goalkeeper Jordan Pickford. The tear to his anterior cruciate ligament was devastating. Liverpool fans feared the worst. Without their leader, could they survive? For Virgil, it was the toughest test of his career. Months of rehabilitation, long days in the gym, the uncertainty of whether he could return to the same level. But true to his character, he faced it with quiet determination. He worked tirelessly, step by step, rebuilding his strength. His teammates spoke of his professionalism, his patience, his refusal to rush. And when he finally returned in 2021, he was greeted with a roar of love from Anfield. The crowd knew how much he meant, not only for his defending but for his presence, his leadership, his aura. Since then, he has continued to anchor Liverpool through ups and downs, guiding younger players, mentoring teammates, and reminding the world of his quality. Even when Liverpool struggled, his calmness never faded. He remains their captain on the pitch, their rock in the storm. As you imagine him now, picture him at Anfield, the floodlights glowing, the cop in full voice. Picture him standing tall, pointing, shouting instructions, his eyes scanning everything, his body unshaken. Picture him rising for a header, clearing danger, carrying the ball forward with that effortless stride. Picture him lifting the Champions League, the Premier League, the armband of captaincy, the respect of the world. Liverpool made him the most expensive defender in history, and he repaid them by becoming priceless. As you lie in bed now, calm and relaxed, breathing slowly, let this final chapter carry you further into rest. We have followed Virgil van Dijk from the streets of Breda to Groningen, from Celtic Park to Southampton, from Anfield to the summit of world football. His journey has been one of resilience, of growth, of setbacks overcome and dreams realized. But the story of Virgil van Dijk is not only about trophies and transfers. It is about legacy, personality, and the future he is still writing, both for himself and for the game he loves. When people speak of Virgil, the first words they often use are calm, commanding, leader. These qualities have defined his presence on the pitch, but behind them lies a deeper story, one of struggles, doubts, and setbacks that shaped him into the man he became. He was once the boy who nearly lost his life to illness, who was rejected by academies, who had to build himself step by step. That past never left him. It gave him humility. It gave him perspective. It gave him the ability to remain steady when others would panic. His legacy at Liverpool is already secured. Before his arrival, Liverpool's defense was often seen as their weakness. Critics mocked their fragility. Opponents exploited their gaps. With Virgil, that changed almost overnight. He brought not only quality but belief. He turned doubt into confidence, chaos into calm. Under his leadership, Liverpool climbed to the very top. Champions League winners in 2019, Premier League champions in 2020. For a generation of fans who had waited 30 years to see their team lift the league trophy, his presence will never be forgotten. But Virgil's impact goes beyond statistics. He became a symbol of Klopp's Liverpool, the team that mixed intensity with composure, energy with stability. He was the anchor that allowed the storm to rage around him. His leadership was not only in tackles and headers, but in gestures, in words, in presence. Young players spoke of how he encouraged them, guided them, gave them confidence. Opponents, even those who tried to beat him, often spoke with respect, admitting his aura was unlike anything they had faced. His near invincibility in duels became legendary. For long stretches, no Premier League attacker dribbled past him. Strikers often changed their runs, shifted their attacks simply because Virgil stood in their way. He made defending an art of anticipation rather than desperation. Watching him was like watching a master painter. Every brushstroke measured, every detail precise. Yet even legends face storms. His injury in October 2020 was one of the darkest moments of his career. An ACL tear can end careers. For months he was absent, his team missing his leadership, his calmness, his strength. Liverpool struggled, and many wondered if he would ever return to the same level. But Virgil's response was true to his character. Quiet determination. He did not rush, did not complain, did not despair. He rebuilt slowly, patiently, day by day. When he returned, he proved the doubters wrong again. He was still Virgil, perhaps scarred but unbroken, perhaps tested but just as strong. This resilience is part of his legacy. He is a reminder that greatness is not about avoiding setbacks, but about overcoming them. He showed that even after the worst injuries, with discipline and mentality, it is possible to return, to lead, to inspire. His story has become an example for young players, proof that football is not only about talent, but about character. Beyond Liverpool, Virgil's role with the Netherlands has been equally significant. As captain of his national team, he has carried the weight of expectation for a proud footballing nation. The Dutch legacy is immense. Cruyff, Van Basten, Bergkamp. To wear the armband for the Oranje is to carry history itself. Virgil embraced it with dignity. His calm leadership, his commanding voice, his steady performances have guided the Netherlands through tournaments, reminding the world that Dutch football still produces giants. His teammates speak of his influence not just during games, but in everyday life. In training, he sets standards. In meetings, he speaks with clarity. In difficult moments, he brings calm. For the Netherlands, as for Liverpool, he is more than a player. He is a pillar, a figure to look toward when the storm rages. Off the pitch, Virgil has remained humble, grounded, private. Unlike many modern stars, he does not chase headlines with his lifestyle. He prefers quiet moments with family, time with his children, evenings away from cameras. He carries himself with dignity, never arrogant, never boastful. When he speaks in interviews, his tone is measured, his words thoughtful. He does not need to shout to be heard. His presence is enough. Media and fans often describe him as the perfect modern defender. Strong but elegant, commanding but calm, physical but intelligent. He is proof that defending is not only about brute force but about timing, anticipation, and confidence. He has changed the way many view the role of a center back, inspiring a new generation to see beauty in the art of defending. As his career moves forward, questions naturally arise. What comes next? He is now in his early 30s, an age when many players begin to slow. But Virgil's discipline, his lifestyle, his mentality, suggest he can continue at the top for years. He still has trophies to chase, tournaments to lead, challenges to embrace. For Liverpool, he remains the anchor of their defense. For the Netherlands, he remains their captain, their leader. And beyond his playing days, many believe Virgil will stay in football. His intelligence, his leadership, his calm personality all point toward a future as a coach or mentor. He has spoken about wanting to give back, to guide younger players, to share what he has learned. It is easy to imagine him one day standing on the touchline, suit instead of kit, guiding a team with the same calm authority he shows on the pitch. But even if he chooses a quieter life, his legacy is secure. He will always be remembered as one of the greatest defenders of his generation, perhaps of all time. His story will inspire not only those who watched him, but those who read about him, those who dream of following in his footsteps. The boy from Breda, once doubted, once rejected, who became the rock of Liverpool, the captain of the Netherlands, the calm giant admired across the world. As you close your eyes now, imagine him one last time. Picture him at Anfield, the Kop singing, the floodlights glowing. Picture him in orange, leading the Netherlands onto the pitch at a major tournament, the captain's armband tight on his arm. Picture him rising above strikers, clearing the ball with ease, his face calm, his eyes steady. Picture him lifting trophies, smiling quietly, his teammates surrounding him. Picture him walking off the pitch, head held high, knowing he gave everything, that he built his legacy not from privilege but from perseverance. The story of Virgil van Dijk is not finished. There are more matches to play, more trophies to chase, more young players to inspire. But already his place in football history is secure. He is more than a defender. He is a symbol of resilience, of leadership, of calm in the storm. And just as you drift into sleep now, let his story remind you. Greatness is not born in ease but in struggle. It is not found in noise but in calm. It is not given. It is earned step by step through patience, discipline, and belief.